Hello, my beautiful ladies and gents. Welcome back to another episode. And in today's episode, we are running down how and really as to what we have right now, what the best range route is going to look like, and maybe some different alternatives to take it in other directions based off your preference. Now, looking at the screen right now, you're probably seeing Leagues for Trailblazer Reloaded. That is specifically because I am not very artistically inclined. It's a work in progress. However, I'm using a old region unlocked list. Shout out to Sean Old School RuneScape. He posted this on Reddit a while back. I've used it before. I'll give him credit in the description. Post a link down to it so you can go and see it. The link will probably have to be in the comments because I don't think that I'm allowed to post links for some reason. Anyways, we're going to be running through the ranged route and every in and out of every region in the ranged gear. So, might be a little bit rambly and a little bit discussive, some more than others, but without further ado, let's go ahead and begin. So, in Misthalin, one, some generic unlocks for ranged. Black D'hide and Rune Crossbows are unlockable through hard and elite clues, as well as God D'hide. So, no matter what regions you do pick, you do have access to those. Misthalin will have access to a Rune Crossbow through the crate. Not Crazy Archaeologist. I forget what it's called. Let me look it up real quick. Deranged Archaeologist. That's what it is. It's on Fossil Island. Oh. Okay. Okay. So, Deranged Archaeologist can give you a Rune Crossbow. You do have melee gear and everything. That's perfectly normal. Something new that we have now that we didn't have previously is Curse of Arav, which means that we do have access to the zombie axe, but that's not really too much going on with the ranged. Having the zombie soldiers or whatever it's called does give you a good chinning spot though, so you will have access to that. It's a very, very good ranged XP. I don't think their defense is too crazy. Let me look this up real quick because I think their ranged defense is slightly higher than their magic, but it's not like crazy. Armored zombie, that's what they're called. They actually really don't have ranged defense. They have like a small number. Their magic defense is 0, but the range defense is like 5, 10, so that's fine. So off to the side, we do have some starred items, which are going to require Misthalin as well as a different region in order to unlock. Obviously, everyone has Misthalin, and everyone has Karamja. So scrolling over, you will need Fremennik. For the Ancient Wyvern Shield, you actually need Kandarin. And the Dragon Visage, you'll need Fremennik as well. Dragon Pickaxe, you'll need Asgarnia. If you're looking to get it from Misthalin anyways. So, going down into Karamja, because I believe that is it for Misthalin. One thing that I do want to say about Misthalin, which I'm not really sure how it's going to work. We also did get a different quest called While Guthix Sleeps, and there's some really good Demon Bane weapons tied behind them. I think their drop table also has some decent things. I think one of them is like the magic short bow. So Burning Claws as well. They'll have Burning Claws. You get the new Demon Bane weapons. Good Alks. You get rune arrows for free. That's not that bad. You get some good seeds. You do get a magic short bow, magic longbow, as well as fire orbs. So that's a way to obtain fire orbs without having to charge them. You also get dragon arrow tips, so you can make some dragon arrows given you end up with the fletching level. So Mistlin, assuming that we're able to access while Gothic sleeps, which is very weird, we'll be able to give you a magic shortbow, burning claws, which is a good melee spec weapon, best in slot and a few bosses, and will probably be best in slot in leagues for having a light bearer as one of your ring options, and probably a spec relic of some kind. While Gothic sleeps technically requires like 4 different regions. Let me look at this real quick. So while Gothic sleeps, obviously Defender of Varrock, the Path of Glowfree, which means that you'll need Kandarin, Dream Mentor, which means that you'll need Fremenic as well as Asgarnia. Hand in the Sand is Kandarin. And then you have a bunch of Mistlin quests, and then you do have Nature Spirit. Yeah, so that's Mauritania. And A Tale of Two Cats, which is technically desert. So actually, it's 5 areas. Now, if by completing certain quests, like or unlocking certain areas, like if I were to unlock Fremenic, if it auto unlocked all the Dream Mentor quests and subrecs, then that would really skyrocket me in terms of completion. Because that would clear the desert quest, clear the Mauritania quest. That would get rid of the Asgarnia quest, I believe. I would still have to take Kandarin. But that would be fine. And then that would give me access to While Gothic Sleeps. Again, it really depends on how they're going to give us access to While Gothic Sleeps. I think that they have to give us access to it in some way. It's just really how the unlock is going to work. So, moving on from that, going into Karamja, Obsidian Armor, different way to get a rune crossbow. Do have Karambwans. You have Dragon Visage from the Steel and Iron Dragons. I think there's also no, I think it's just the Steel and Iron Dragons. I don't think a Mithril Dragon. No, a Mithril Dragon or up are not down there. So you can buy onyxes through the shops. This also gives you a good crafting method through the shops. You have all the obby weapons, so you do actually get the obsidian ranged weapons, which let me look that up. I believe they are 2 ticks. The Zilzol. So these... No, these are actually 3 ticks. So these are not going to be that useful unless they round down and go down to 1 tick. And then they might be useful early game. These are some of your better thrown weapons in terms of like early game. They pretty much match a magic shortbow with rune arrows. Your range is going to be a little bit less, I believe. You will need some money to be able to get the Tockle, though, in order to buy a good amount of these. However, they do have 500 per shop, and they've already confirmed that the way that shops are going to work is that they have infinite stock, so you'll always be able to buy these. But you will require a significant amount of toggle. However, if there is a ranged relic buff that basically lets you have close to infinite ammo, you will not need to buy very, very many. And this will be a very good ranged weapon for you to have early game, especially before your tick buff relic, if that happens this leagues, because it is 3 ticks. So that will be very good. It'll definitely compete with some of your mid game to late ranged options. Moving on from that, we have all the melee capes. That'll be decent-ish. Obby cape might be your best bet. Fire cape at some point should be better, as it'll give you prayer bonus. And I think for Karamja, that's mostly it. Technically, if you do Dragon Slayer 2 at some point, I'm not sure if you're going to be able to do Dragon Slayer 2, because I think it's going to be similar to Walgothic Sleeps that requires several different areas. So a bunch of Mistling quests. You do need Kandarin for Underground Pass, and Waterfall quest, Dream Mentor, so you'll need Fremennik, and then A Tale of Two Cats, so you do need Desert, as well as Ghost Ahoy and Bon Voyage. Bon Voyage is still missing. Ghost Ahoy, though, so you will need Mauritania as well. So unless they make like unlocking Fremennik basically auto completes Dream Mentor, so you basically don't have to do any of those subquests. You pick Kandarin and Fremennik, then you'll be able to do Dragon Slayer 2, and then I think that you'll have to still do Mauritania anyways in order to get the Ava's assembler. That would give you a good ranged option for your cape. But again, you would have to do Fremennik and Kandarin, so little bit of restricted options there. So moving on from that, we do have Asgarnia. Asgarnia is not looking super good this year, primarily because they did say every region was getting it. However, I find it hard to believe that Asgarnia will get something useful out of this. So in the dev stream for Leagues 5, Raging Echoes, each region is going to have a boss that drops a unique to old school weapon. Not weapon. They specifically did not state that it was a weapon. It's going to drop a item that is not in old school at all. They didn't specify that it wasn't in RuneScape at all. They said specifically not in old school RuneScape. So they could be reused assets from RuneScape 3. Something that comes to mind that a lot of people probably remember is like the Staff of Armadyl, or Divine Spirit Shield, or the Hand Cannon, if people remember that. Those are things that come to mind for reusing some assets and items, which I could see them doing that. Some of those items are very fun, but they're very overpowered and a bit much for the power level that RuneScape is in. But going through Asgardia for ranged options, you do have Armadyl. However, Armadyl is severely outclassed in terms of range strength by Masori in the desert, so Armadyl is not super useful. It doesn't give any range strength, which is interesting. Its power lies in its accuracy and its prayer. So moving on from that, you are mainly looking at Void to be your ranged option if this is a area that you choose to unlock, which technically would work out because almost anywhere you go, you don't really have good range gloves. Uh, and so having that armor set almost kind of gives you it fills in your armor slots basically. Um, However, you end up losing the Masori options. So if taking Asgarnia, so this might come down to what content that you want to do here, because Void gives you an accuracy bonus as well as some damage. Masori just gives you straight damage. However, Masori is also very weak in terms of defensive bonuses. So they're roughly going to be about the same. I can actually hop on a calc here real quick, and I can look at this. I was calculating some other stuff real quick. So let's just look at some. Let's look at a basic rune crossbow calc. Um, we'll say we're using a normal void range set with Eagle Eye. Rune crossbow, runite bolts. No nothing, no nothing, no nothing. Max hit is 37 with runite bolts. So if we take off void range set and then we go to Masori, 35. So it's actually a +2 max hit here. Right here. So having Void over Masori is actually really not bad. And you're not necessarily like losing anything here. I'm trying to think of what really, like, what are the huge benefits that you get from Desert now. Honestly, this is pretty solid stuff. Huh. So it's looking like Void might be some of your best options. Previously, like Masori was almost always the option that you were choosing, just because you could also get Armadillo, so you make Masori fortified, and so you have incredible defense as well. But with that being said, this might be a little bit different of a game. This also unlocks you access to Pegasian boots. However, Pegasian boots are a little bit underrated because you're already going to have so much accuracy, especially going through this leagues, and they only actually give you damage bonus or accuracy bonus and no range strength. So that is a bit concerning. So you're kind of wasting a boot slot. I can't think of anywhere else that really has boots. So moving on from that, Void is looking like it's ideal in this scenario. Armadillo crossbow, as well as a Zerite crossbow, are options for your one-handed weapons, which are very, very good. You also get offered Zerite Van Braces, which give you some range strength. However, it's only like +2, so the range strength bonus that you get from it is very minimal. However, again, we do have Raging Echo bosses in the game, so it's well possible that either in one of your regions or in Asgarnia, that you get a ranged piece of armor or something that gives you more value than you might want with the Void. So having more options for your Zerite Van Braces in case you wanted to use it somewhere is good. You do have access to Cerberus, which will be good for Hellhound tasks. You do get Dragon Defender. You get some melee armor and gear. You do get the Bandos Godsword, which is so useful for bossing in almost any circumstance ever. Zamorakian Spear will be good. I think that gives you your best stab weapon so far. You do get the Max Cape, which is actually pretty useful. Um, if unlocking Kandarin, you get the Dwarf Multi-Cannon. Dragon Pickaxe is a possibility as well. And Eternal Boots for Desert. Moving on into Desert, we have Masori, which I've already talked about. The full set giving you 8 range strength, which is not bad. Pretty ideal. You get Infinity Robes, and you also get Virtus Robes, which Virtus Robes are just superior in every single way. However, these, I believe, are specifically only from the Duke. So, unless you choose to, I believe, unlock Fremennik and Zaya, I think, are the other ones. You will be locked to the Duke, which is fine because I think that personally the Duke is one of the easier ones, especially with this little bit of information that I'm about to give you. Moving on to the Tunic Shadow, it is not alone this year. So in this leagues, you can actually get all 3 raid weapons from one raid, and that is what they want. So you don't have to feel if you wanted to go melee that you were locked to Morytania. So now Desert, Mori, and Zaya all drop all 3 raid weapons in every single raid. So if you took Desert, for example, you could get the Tumakin, the T-Bow, and the Scythe all in one raid, all from the same raid. So that will let you do Duke a lot easier. So having that will be super useful. Also, you have Osmulten's Fang, so you get even more melee equipment. You do get the Light Bearer, you get Aladdin's Ward. So Desert's still looking very, very strong for magic. You obviously get Ancients. You do get access to darts. Being able to make darts. Ancient Staffs. Smoke Battle Staff. The Pharaoh's Scepter. Master Wand. Mage's Book. Tome of Water. Blackjacking. Bones to Peaches. Granite Mining. And Dragon Pickaxe by itself, which is interesting. I believe that's from the Kalphite Queen, which leads me on to my next topic. We have already been spoiled on a Raging Echoes boss for Desert specifically. Through the dev stream, they told us that Kalphite Queen was going to drop a competitive best in slot ranged weapon that we had never seen before, to balance out the Desert a little bit more, make it feel like a stronger choice for range. Which I understand completely, because Osmulten's Fang is OP enough that it single-handedly makes Desert a good option for melee. Lightbearer is also very good, as there's a ton of melee spec weapons. So, all that being said, we don't know what the ranged weapon is. However, I'm speculating that it is more than likely going to be a one-handed weapon. As Desert is a raid region, we will already be having a two-handed ranged weapon, the T-Bow, which will put most other things... You don't want 2 weapons contesting each other, essentially. So it will likely be a one-handed ranged weapon, I believe. So I would look out for that and kind of look at your options currently as if that was a one-handed ranged weapon, or maybe even a spec ranged weapon. So moving on from that, Fremennik, this year, at least right now, not a lot of value at all, because we actually have a new region, which I'll talk about here at the end. Stick around for that. But the stonemason is not the only stonemason in the game anymore, or at least not whenever Leagues drops. So Fremennik is losing a lot of its value, because that was, apart from like doing Dragon Slayer 2 and doing Vorkath, like that was where all of Fremennik's value was in the stonemason and having a maxed POH. And now that you can do that somewhere else, I really feel like Fremennik is falling behind by a lot. obviously having the Lunar Spellbook is cool and it feels good, especially to have for maxing because the Lunar Spellbook is a very good utility spellbook. It helps out with a lot of skills, but there's just no like content to really support your account. Um, I'm honestly like I'm lost for what they really have. So going through these options here, uh, the Fremenic Face Guard is a really rare drop from the like Basilisk Knight or something. Let me look that up. Uh, yeah, it's Basilisk Knight or Basilisk Sentinel, which is the like superior version of it, which you get through Slayer only after unlocking Basilisk Knights. Which you could probably manipulate that to where Fremenic is like your first area unlock, so you could do Slayer task and basically almost always get the Basilisk Knight. You could probably do that in some way, and with the increased drop rates, it probably drops pretty fast. But at the end of the day, the Fremenic Face Guard is just a best in slot melee helm, and I think it's technically off by one. Um, yeah. So it is a very good helm, but it is slightly behind the Torval Full helm. Um, you do get access to all the rings. However, a bunch of the rings don't really give you a max hit. The Berserker ring does. So right now it's looking almost like Fremenic is just a support melee route, which is not really ideal. Um, what you could do is combo Fremenic with Kandarin to really unlock a bunch of content that way. And you could unlock the Berserker Ring Imbued. You could... God, I really feel like that's it. I mean, I guess if you did like Asgarnia, you could get Piety, but that now you're talking like three regions already, and one of them isn't even a raid. So, yeah. Um, you do get the Venator Bow, which I will admit is a great way to train ranged and do ranged Slayer. It's very very good. The Stonemason, we've already talked about it. Fremenic will not be the only one, and from what Fremenic has right now, you do not want to take Fremenic. I'm actually very interested to see whether or not Fremenic will have multiple Raging Echo bosses, or if all three DKs each will be a Raging Echoes, because we kind of got teased in the dev stream that one of the DKs was going to be a Raging Echoes boss, but I'm like looking at the list right now, like Fremenic is dead. And with Varlamore coming out, Varlamore Part 2, having a Stonemason, Fremenic is killed. There's like no reason to take Fremenic, like at all. Unless you just really like doing Forecast, and I'm sure people got enough of that in the main game. So, dude. I really think all three DKs are going to be Raging Echoes bosses. Like, there's no way that it's not going to be like that. So Fremenic right now, I personally would not recommend taking. Unless, again, you really like doing Vorkath and you're trying to grind for that Vorkey. Yeah. Moving on to Kandarin. Kandarin has been a hot debate recently. A lot of people have been thinking about taking it as a support region almost. So you get the Xenite jewelry, right? You get the occult necklace. You get the Kraken tentacle to help your mid game. You get the Trident of the Seas to help with your mid game. You get the Smoke Battle Staff to help with do normal magic. You cast fire spells and it'll be even stronger. So you do get the heavy ballista from Kandarin in terms of range, but for range, Kandarin really isn't offering a whole lot. You do get the Nightmare Zone Imbue shop, so you do get access to imbue your Archer ring if you so happen to take Fremennik somehow or for some reason. And you can also imbue rings from every other region. The content in Kandarin is going to be pretty sparse, though. It's not going to really be a whole lot of options. Like Demonic Gorillas is going to be the main thing, and you get Necklace of Anguish from that, which is good, and it's not that bad. You'll also get Ring of Suffering, which will probably be your best in slot ring, if not taking a region with a different ring. And even then, taking a region with a different ring, it might just be your best DPS, depending on the relics and stuff. And if you wanted to spend time outside of whatever boss you were doing, making Rings of Recoil, it might be your best DPS option. So, light and heavy ballista are not going to be that useful unless we see some real good relics show up. I was talking with a friend at some point. We actually speculated that there might be a relic that gives you more strength the slower your range weapon is, because they introduced this effect in Tormented Demons at some point. Or like whenever they launched, they introduced that effect in Tormented Demons themselves. And kind of like theory crafting a little bit, I presume that they were like testing things, and them testing things that accidentally rolled out into the main server. And so I'm really thinking that there is going to be a relic that the slower your weapon is, the heavier your hit is, or the more damage that your hit does. So like for every tick that is slower, you'll get more strength of that style. So if that happens, I do think Heavy Ballista will be very good. You'll still need Dragon Javelins, but that's fine because the Demonic Gorillas also drop that. But that might be pretty fun. And also, not real sure what the Raging Echoes is going to drop for Kandarin, but I almost feel like Fremennik in the fact that it's kind of dead right now. It does have some more stuff, and it's a little bit more universal for every style because it does have Zenite and Occult, which is pretty useful. It's definitely pretty decent for Mage just because you get the Occult Necklace as well as the Tormented Bracelet, so you get best in slot Mage necklace and wrist, so it's not that bad. But range is very limited. However, if that slow to strength relic does come out, Heavy Ballista is something that you'll want to keep on your radar. And we may revisit this whenever we get more news of the relic systems, but that probably won't be for around another month, I assume. So, jumping into Morytania, there is pretty much nothing here that is ranged. You have Carols, but it doesn't give you any range strength, so it doesn't really matter. You do have the Slayer helmet, which is pretty valuable in terms of like whether or not you want to task hunt. If we do get a utility relic like we did, I think 2 leagues ago, or maybe it was 3, where you got to basically infinitely re-roll your Slayer task until you got the Slayer task that you wanted, we could actually find a lot of value in that, especially if you're looking to go into a specific area where there's a specific monster or type of monster. This just gives you a straight up 15% damage and accuracy buff, and it's super worth. Especially if you're comboing it with something like the Wilderness and you're doing the wildy weapons, which something that you always want to be careful doing. However, in this league's mode, it's all Iron Man, so even if you do die to a PK, you can go and grab your stuff back. But Slayer Helm does give you options, and you can, if you did want to imbue it though, you would need to take Kandarin, which is a little stressful. So you do have the Salve Amulet as well. However, if you're not melee, you'll have to take Kandarin. So Salve Amulet is also good for you in certain circumstances. There's a good few undead bosses and spectral bosses where Salve is good, but it's just one of those things that it really depends on your route and what things that you'll be doing. Some of it also depends a little bit on the relics, but currently there's no way to imbue it. Well, actually, no, you can imbue both the Slayer Helm and Salve Amulet from Soul Wars. So I'm sorry if you already commented down on that, but Slayer Helm, Salve Amulet, you can imbue them through Soul Wars. So that is an option. So Morytania could be an option. Again, if we get the relic that lets you reroll tasks specifically, Slayer Helmet will definitely be super good and almost worth doing. And that might even be worth dropping Void and dropping Asgarnia and taking something like Desert, Morytania, and the filler raid region, which would probably be Chambers in this sense, but we will be getting to that pretty soon. Blood Fury doesn't really matter because it only procs on melee hits. Justy doesn't really matter unless they give like infinite spec and you can do like a Zerite tank crossbow spec build. You can get all 3 raid weapons from Mori, so the scythe doesn't really matter that much. You do have Harmonized Staff here, and the Sanguinesti Staff, which are pretty good, but these will be mage only. Inquisitor's Mace, Inquisitor Armor Set, Grazi Rapier, and Avernic Defender are all pretty good, but these are melee options, and for the Avernic you'll need Asgarnia. So, moving on from that, to Ronwyn. So this is a little bit rough, but I think that Tronwyn is going to be something that you'll be taking, not necessarily for the equipment, but more so for either the speed of the points or the speed of the tasks, because there's not that much content here in a way. So you have Corrupted Gauntlet, you have Zolcano, and you have Zulrah. You have some skilling options, but nothing too major that's going to take you any amount of time, really. However, Tronwyn is very good and does have very good training methods. And just about training methods for just about everything. But having the crystal armor, very good, very tanky gear, and it buffs your crystal weapons. So you can almost, I would say you can almost treat this as like kind of a raid region, because combining the crystal armor with the Bofa or the Blade of Sealdor pretty much puts it at a very close par to the raid weapons in max gear. However, if you took this to be your raid region, you now have your armor set and you have your weapon all in one region. So there is a bit of value here in the fact that you get 4 item slots that you want, allowing you to possibly pick up an extra region. So with something like this, you now have your 3 armor pieces, you have the Bofa, and now you can look at filling out things like the Zerite Van Braces, the Necklace of Anguish, Pegasian Boots, Archer's Ring Imbued, or the Venator Ring. I think is the ranged ring that gives you some strength bonus. Getting the Ava's Assembler, maybe. Yeah, so there's a few options here. Maybe you take Varlamore for doing the Xanos Quiver, and Varlamore should also give no, I think that's it. If you were taking the Blade of Sealdor, though, Blade of Sealdor is still one-handed, so getting the Avernic, you know, going Mori is probably the answer because you get the Blood Fury, you get the Avernic Defender, you yeah, so you would go Tronwyn Mori Asgarnia for melee there. That just seems right. You get D boots. Gloves feel a little empty, but yeah, not a whole lot in Tronwyn. You do have the blowpipe for ranged, so there's that. However, unless you take desert, you're not going to be able to make darts yourself. You will have to get them, and that might be a problem unless you have a huge range saving relic. I believe you can get dragon darts from dragon implings. Let me double check that real quick. Yes, you can get 100 to 250 darts per dragon impling, which is a 1 in 19 roll. Apart from that, you can get dragon dart tips, but you can't yeah. So you can make dragon dart tips, but you can't make you can't smith dart tips unless you have desert unlocked. So that's a prerequisite there. But apart from that, Tronwyn is like really empty. I'm very curious to see what their Raging Echoes would be and what it's going to introduce. But Tronwyn might be useful if it gives you like a glove, a cape, a boot, something like that. It might be pretty useful, so you can combo it with the Bofa, and basically you would need like one more region to basically be done, and then you can take your gear to a raid and you'll be pretty much good. Moving on from there, Breacher with a little bit more content going into the wilderness. So this was not a lot of people's fan favorites before. Personally, I wanted to go to the wilderness. Ended up not going it because I wanted to go other raid regions and do raids with my friends. Wilderness offers outside of the uniques, Wilderness does offer really good Slayer experience, as well as supplies through demi bosses, Slayer keys, or the Laren's keys, and Slayer caves. Moving into the uniques, actually, we also got new content in the Wilderness halfway into this past year. Zombie pirates, which aren't gonna really be that good unless you do the Wilderness medium diary, but that's pretty basic and simple to do. They drop a whole lot of supplies, and let me pull up their table real quick. Zombie pirates, blood, death, chaos, mind runes, a whole lot of rune drops, dragon dagger, longsword, and scimitar drops. They do drop cannonballs, but that's for the most part going to be useless unless you're taking Kandarin and Asgarnia alongside Wildy. Teleport anchoring scroll to help fight abyssal demons. So they drop super good GP. So if taking the Wilderness, that would be your method of GP, or at least early game. Because they're like level 20 to like 24. They're super low level, very easy to kill, and a lot of times they've already been weakened by the mages that are there. So moving into the uniques now, Dagon High, which after the mage rebalance now gives magic strength bonus. Total, I believe the set gives either 3 or 4%. And let me check the Dagon High robe set real quick. So this is actually really good. Okay, it's all 1% magic damage. However, they also give prayer bonus. So Dagon High is actually useful now. But not so much for the range. Going into the Void Waker, really good spec weapon for melee. The wieldy weapons. So me and a friend have had a speculation about this. If there is a relic that is like tied to the wilderness or some sort of buff that you get, maybe for example the Raging Echo that is in the wilderness gives you an item or gives you like a buffed up Ferenthy bracelet that lets the wieldy weapons be used as if they were in the wieldy anywhere else in the league, the wieldy weapons would be very good. However, wieldy weapons by themselves are already very, very good. They give you a straight damage buff alongside other buffs which also stack, like the Slayer Helm or the Salve Amulet. These weapons are incredibly good. They just give you a straight damage buff and accuracy buff to any NPC that you fight in the wilderness. So the Web Weaver bow is something that is super strong. Even outside of the wilderness, it's okay, but it's not going to be as powerful as your raid weapons. It probably will beat a magic short bow, but it's not going to be anything crazy. However, in the wilderness, it will be your best in slot, hands down. You do also get dragon boots, which are okay for melee. The ward, so I believe this was part of the Project Rebalance, but the Odium ward now also gives +4 range strength, which is actually quite a bit. It's probably the lesser of all the range shields, but it is still a pretty good chunk. Wilderness does also give you a rune crossbow drop through the Crazy Archaeologist, and it gives you some of the best ring slots, unless you're taking a different region like Desert or Kandrin. So you get Ring of the Gods, which is probably going to be the ring that you choose just because it gives like +12 prayer, 1 to imbued, which you can do through Soul Wars, so that's fine. You do have Spirit Shields, however, none of them really benefit the ranged setup that much. Spectral reduces the amount of prayer that you lose. Arcane gives you mage bonus, and Elysian reduces the damage taken. Yeah, Mage Arena 2 capes. So all in all, for range, it's not necessarily crazy, but having the Odium ward and the Web Weaver bow is pretty decent, as well as all the supply drops that the demi bosses drop. So personally, I would say if you're looking to max, Wilderness might be a good option for you just because of the amount of supplies that it drops. But in terms of like actual range gear, apart from the Odium ward, it's not really a lot. Again, looking out for their Raging Echoes, could possibly be something there. I think they might also introduce a Wildy Worm in this and kind of give us a taste of what that might be in terms of like their Raging Echo for the Wilderness boss. But not really sure if they're gonna actually do that or not. They might just buff up one of the demi bosses or like Chaos Elemental or something, and that'll be the Raging Echo for that. Moving on to the second to last region, Korinth, Zeah. This is looking like one of the best regions this league. And I know a lot of people took it last league as well, and probably the league before that if it was out. This raid that is in this region gives you so much stuff, and now that it also gives you all 3 raid weapons, I can't see a reason not to take this. Whether you're going for mage or range, this feels like an insta take every time. So let's go through the uniques first. Ancestral set, super good. Best in slot mage unless you're using ancients specifically. Best in slot mage. Dragon Claw is really good melee spec weapon. Twisted Bow, we have all 3 raid weapons due to the way that they're doing it for the league, so that's fine. Doesn't really matter, but that'll be your best in slot for 99% of wherever you go. Elder Maul. Okay, so this makes Asgarnia for the Bandos God Sword basically irrelevant. So Elder Maul got a rework this past year. Those of you that don't know, Elder Maul is basically the new Dragon Warhammer. It reduces, actually, let me read you word for word what it does now. But it, for those of you that were around last year, before the rework, you probably remember the price of it being around 10 mil, maybe 8, 7, 6 mils sometimes, if it like really dropped or was being manipulated by the market. The price now is 134 mil GE price. That is the price of the Elder Maul now. So that goes to show you a little bit of its value. Mind you, it is also on the Mega Rare table alongside the Twisted Bow. So it is rare. So the Elder Maul has a special attack Pulverize, costing 50% special attack energy, increasing the player's accuracy by 25%. Successful hit will reduce the target's defense level by 35%, 5% more than the Dragon Warhammer, I believe. Effectively acting as a superior version of Dragon Warhammer's special attack. Even then, due to the Maul's stats, it is slightly more accurate than a Dragon Warhammer within a Vernic Defender. So it's already more accurate, and it gives that accuracy bonus, and it drops by more percentage. Beating the pair by plus 12 crush bonus and plus 54 strength bonus. However, the damage doesn't matter as long as the spec hits. It still does the stat drain. Does miss out on some damage as Dragon Warhammer gets 50% damage buff from the special, but again, that's fine. You're not using the spec for damage. When used against Tecton, the first special attack from Elder Maul is guaranteed to hit. However, subsequent attacks were to fail to hit, it will instead reduce 5% of its defense level. Defense level reductions will stack over multiple successful hits. Each reduction is calculated from the current temporary level. So the rest of this is just like how it always was. So it'd be 35% and 35% of the 65% defense that he has. So it would go down to like 40-something percent. Some dumb math stuff. But basically, the Elder Maul is a actual item in the game now. And the Dragon Warhammer is basically not at all an item anymore, because people do chambers enough that the Elder Maul comes into the game like hotcakes. And Dragon Warhammer, though after the Elder Maul buff, it did get a slight buff on the drop rate. It is now a 1 in 3k drop versus what it used to be at a 1 in 5k. Lizardman Shamans are still a pain to kill, and they take like 10-15 seconds each to kill, and it really adds up, and you're just looking at tossing thousands of hours just to get a Dragon Warhammer when you could also just be doing the raid to get the Elder Maul. So Dragon Warhammer is pretty much no longer in the game. Very rarely is it used anywhere. So Elder Maul is now in the game. Dragon Warhammer is out of the game. The only uses that it has now is as an actual hammer. Din's Bulwark is still very good. Best tank shield. And also has a really good special attack for aggroing multiple monsters. So you can AFK if wanted. Will be good for doing like Kryn Slayer and stuff like that. And having basically tagging monsters so you can AFK in Kryn Slayer dungeon. Dragon Hunter Crossbow will be super good for doing the raid itself. And then you'll also get Twisted Buckler, which Twisted Buckler, I believe, is best in slot range shield. So, yeah, you're going to get plus 10 range strength from this. It is... Yeah, so does offer the most range strength, plus 18 ranged accuracy and plus 10 range strength. Incredible. You'll also get Rigor, which basically is indispensable if you're really looking to push a range setup or a mage setup having Rigor or Augury. Especially Augury now after the mage rebalance, because now it actually gives magic strength. But Rigor, from what I've calced, and some of the highest range setups that you can have, will give you up to +6 max hits using a T-bow. Using a lot of other things, you're probably looking at like +4 or +3, but those are a lot of numbers to add. So, Rigor, not to mention the accuracy bonus that you will also get from it, which I believe is like a +20% ranged accuracy, and it's like +23% range strength or something. So that is crazy valuable, almost worth just taking instantly because of that. You will also get the Brimstone Ring from Korinth, which is your next like ranged option. It is a technical like hybrid ring. I believe it gives +2 range like attack bonus. Not even range strength. It gives like +2 ranged attack. So let me look this up real quick. So okay. Does give +4 strength bonus. +4 attack, +4 slash, +4 crush, +6 magic attack, +4 ranged attack. So it also gives a little bit of defense. Gives those same stats in defense, and then it gives +4 strength at the very bottom. This ring, I believe, cannot be imbued. However, yeah, cannot be imbued. However, it has a passive effect, which I just now learned about this one. Worn that improves its effectiveness to rival the Seer's Ring Eye when using magic. Each time the player attacks using a spell or magical attack, powered staves included, 25% chance that the target's defensive roll will be reduced by 10% for that attack. There's a game message whenever this happens, and it doesn't apply when using multi-hit spells. It'll only apply to a single target. But that's interesting. So that's gonna be your like next best in slot ring. If not taking like Fremenic and like imbuing the ring through like Soul Wars or whatever. So that'll be your best in slot ring if Korinth only. And then we also have Dragon Hunter Lance, Arclight, and Kodai. However, those are not going to be range weapons, but they will be super useful. So, on to the last region. And this one, it's not technically on the list. So, going a little bit off the book here, and off of what I've experienced. Firstly, Varlamore. Varlamore has a Stonemason in Varlamore Part 2, basically making Fremenic irrelevant. Makes Fremi super irrelevant. Part from that Huequatl, I believe that's how you say the name, is going to be the new like Earth Dragon boss. It's going to give the Tome of Earth a new Dragon Bane wand. So that'll be your best in slot wand against a lot of dragons. That's going to be in Varlamore. And that same boss is also going to drop. For some reason, it is going to drop ranged gear. Not sure if it drops a coif or not, but I know it drops a top and bottom. That is going to be stronger than Carol's and Bless D'hide. It just has better stats all around. For some reason. Don't know why. I don't feel like the ranged style needed that, but that will be in the game. So you'll get a lot of accuracy out of that. You'll get some good bonuses. That'll be ideal for ranged. Moving on from that, there are a couple unique things in Varlamore for ranged. So obviously Perilous Moons. However, most of the gear is geared towards melee / like mage mix. None of them are really for ranged, except for one. But even that one is a little bit unique. Eclipse Atlatl So the Eclipse Atlatl has the Atlatl weapon, which is a ranged attacking weapon. However, it uses your melee strength to determine its max hit, and it uses its like ranged prayer bonus as a multiplier. So you don't need piety, but you will need melee gear to use that. So this can really make some wild and weird, wacky builds. However, max strength armor, so like Bandos top and bottom, is tied by the Blood Moon armor. And I believe the Eclipse is like one stat behind on the strength bonus. So like you don't need to go as Carnia really. Like you can if you want Torva and want to do like the absolute max funny Atlatl build, but it's just not going to be that prevalent. Like it's going to be a big waste of time for the amount of value that you get out of it when you have the armor right there that you're going to have to farm anyways just to get the Atlatl darts, because that's how the Perilous Moons works. So the Atlatl darts, I believe on Rapid, are a 3-tick weapon. So if we do end up getting a rounded down relic that buffs it to where it ends up being 1 tick, that'll be super crazy, and there will be some builds going on with that. Secondly, there is a second item that is just like this that not a lot of people know about, and it is called the Hunter's Spear, which is technically a hunter weapon. Only requiring 55 range and 30 strength. Its range is only 5 tiles, so it's slightly small. However, it gives plus 73 ranged attack, which is a good amount. Let me make sure that this is a two-handed weapon. Okay, so this is just like the Atlatl because it will use your melee strength bonus. And it does give 48 melee strength bonus. Let me Google real quick. Okay, so it is looking like these are going to be one-handed. So you'll pretty much be able to wear Dragon Defender and everything with these. So Hunter Spears, right? Let me break it down why these are so valuable. So the way a lot of leagues has worked, I'm also Googling Eclipse Atlatl so I can have something I can compare it with. The way leagues have worked is there's almost always a relic of the style of your choice that lets you cut your attack speed in half, and then up to a certain number, it will round down the attack speed. So if I have a 5-tick weapon, which is what a lot of the raid weapons are, it will round that speed down, or it'll cut that speed in half, which comes out to 2.5, and then it rounds it down. However, in the past, like I think 1 or 2 leagues, once it goes below 2, it rounds up. That way there's like not a whole lot of broken things. However, we're putting the Eclipse Atlatl and the Hunter Spear side by side. The Eclipse Atlatl has 40 melee strength with 87 ranged attack bonus, which isn't terrible, right? these are a 3-tick weapon on rapid. However, the Hunter's Spear with 73 ranged attack, slightly less. However, it gives 48 ranged strength and +1 prayer for some weird reason. It's 48 melee strength, which is pretty strong. This is a 5-tick weapon. So what this means is that this weapon getting cut in half goes to 2.5. And if we round that down, that goes to 2. So cutting the Eclipse Atlatl in half goes to 1.5. And if it's following the same rules as what I described, it's going to have to round up. So these will end up being the same attack speed. Unless the Eclipse Atlatl goes down to 1, which would be super valuable. The Hunter's Spear is looking incredibly good. And these are almost free to get. These cost absolutely nothing. So you get these from doing Hunter in Varlamore, and by using a Teak Log with a Jerboa Tail and Hunter Spear tips, which you can get from I believe the shop. No, it's the Hunter rewards for doing Hunter rumors. So, but you get a lot of them, and they're very common. Then the Jerboa Tails are just from doing regular Jerboas, which require level 39 Hunter. So it's really not that bad. They are super easy to make, easy to get, and you will inevitably get them regardless if you end up doing Hunter. And they also count as ammunition. So if you're using these and you have some sort of ammunition saving relic, or you have Ava's device or accumulator, these do get picked up just the same as arrows. So these will be super good like that. And if these go down to 2 ticks, these are technically going to be stronger than the Atlatl. And you can get these so early, you don't have to farm 60 Slayer or 55 Slayer, whatever the requirement was to do Perilous Moons or any of that. You'll have access to them the moment that you get the Hunter level to do these, and 55 range and 30 strength. These are probably something that you want to keep on your radar, whether or not you want to use these, do a build around these. Maybe you want to do some sort of melee ranged funny strength build. That might be an option. Maybe Morytania is not so bad because you have these. Moving on from that, there is the Fortis Coliseum, which will give you Dazana's Quiver. However, unless they do a specific thing, which I'm sure that they're going to, Dazana's Quiver I don't believe that you can wear this until you talk to Ava. Well, I might be wrong. This might just be like a straight reward from the Coliseum. So, okay. You have Dazana's Quiver from the Coliseum. So you can then just save ammunition with that. Yeah, so yeah. Getting Dazana's Quiver from the Fortis Coliseum will be super good. That'll give you a option. Ah, yes. Okay, so you do get Dazana's Quiver. You get everything from Dazana's Quiver. However, you do not get the ammunition saving effect unless you bring it to Ava with a Ava's Assembler, Accumulator, or Max Cape equivalent. And it's looking like, yeah, so you can get the ranging cape given a certain region. You'll be able to combine it with Dishonest Quiver, but you won't be able to combine it with Ava's Assembler, which is going to be what gives you like the 80% chance for saving the ammunition versus the ranging cape. The ranging cape will only save 72% of ammo, but it's pretty much going to give you the same effect regardless, just because we're going to be in leagues. Making these is really easy, and 72% to 80% isn't going to be that impactful versus dropping a whole entire region for one other region. 72% will totally be fine, especially with Varlamore, these being so easy to make. So, Dishonest Quiver, Hunter's Spear, the ranging cape given a certain area is chosen. You can turn Dishonest Quiver into ammo saving. All in all, these Hunter Spears are looking pretty good. But you might want to end up picking some melee regions with this to buff up the strength bonus of that. And that honestly makes Morytania actually feel like almost a decent choice for this. Especially because you get the Slayer Helm and Salve Amulet options, which also combine with this to give you an even better time. Honestly, looking pretty good. Might even take Kandarin just so you get the ranging cape. That'll give you the Zenite jewelry, and yeah, that's not bad. So, Varlamore. There's always more stuff. Obviously we have the thieving activities in Varlamore. We'll have all the new stuff. We have the Hunter Guild. And we have Perilous Moons along with Cam Torum and everything that is in air, which is also a gem shop, so you'll also have access to crafting. Honestly, Varlamore is almost looking like a must take, and Korinth is looking like a must take. Also, Korinth's Rigor will be buffing the Hunter Spear, so if you take the Hunter Spear and that's something that you want to look at, Korinth and Rigor are probably going to be something that you also take with Varlamore. So just to buff that up. That's really looking like it. Thinking about it, I can't think of any like huge revelations. Like Asgarnia obviously does sound good with that Ladle and the Hunter Spear. That sounds fun. You'll also get Zerite Crossbow and Band Braces, so that's cool. You get Prims. You do get the Dragon Defender. Morytania is good. So, and we don't have a Raging Echoes confirmation of like anything for Zaya or Varlamore, but those are also still on the table, and we'll have to see what really drops when that time comes around. But all in all, there's a good bit of options, but it looks like for ranged, you're definitely going to be thinking about Korinth. Varlamore is definitely something to look out for, but it's not a must take. Korinth is definitely going to be something that you have to take if you're going to be looking at ranged. Just because Rigor is like way too valuable. And you getting Twisted Buckler gives you a little bit more options in terms of like your one-handed weapons. Twisted Bow is also obviously really good, but you'll get that from any region that you choose. Desert does show up, and desert is something to think about, but if you're thinking about taking Asgardia, you're going to get the Void set, or if you're thinking about Taranwen, you're going to get the Crystal Armor set, and that Masori is not going to mean anything to you. So these are things to keep in mind. Obviously, none of this is set in stone. There's a lot of stuff that is still possible to change, subject to change. We might get some Raging Echoes in the Wilderness or like Taranwen, and all of a sudden they change the meta. So Fremnik is something I think will have like 10 Raging Echoes bosses in. There's no way that like they keep Fremnik the way it is. Nobody's picking Fremnik this leagues if it stays the way it is. So that is all that I have. I do plan to release a couple videos in the next couple days. Not necessarily about leagues. It's going to take me a little bit more time to really plan out my other routes, because I'm personally thinking of taking a melee route or a mage route, because I normally take a melee route, or I do a funny build of some kind. And yeah, it's going to take me a minute. I might not even decide until it gets closer to the time where we know more about the relics and more of what's coming out. But just some theory crafting, that will probably be about next week. So stay tuned for my videos coming out in the next couple days. And I love you guys. Peace.